Greetings, everyone. My name is Skylar.
I'm Jesse.
I'm Vivian.
And I'm Taryn.
And we are Group Green. After engaging ourselves in sacred texts and the beliefs of the three Abrahamic religions, we became particularly interested in the topic of symbols. At every moment, we are exposed to symbols, some new, some old. We often ignore these symbols and choose to simply go about our daily lives. People often assume that a certain symbol has a simple meaning. For example, a symbol originally meant to represent the Buddhist notion of peace and tranquility is now associated with war and genocide. The true meaning of symbols are often neglected. This pattern is especially true in sacred spaces where we ritually interact with symbols. People often go into specific sacred spaces, observe a symbol, and automatically interact with it. We rarely reflect or seriously contemplate the true meaning of the symbols or the gestures we perform. This tendency is most evident in symbolism's intense application in the Abrahamic religions of the world. After becoming interested in the symbols of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, our group realized that we wanted to conduct research for an interreligious project. Within the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, we've identified three respective rituals in which a worshiper acknowledges a symbol and gestures toward it. These rituals are filled with many symbolic and theological meanings. For each ritual, the symbol, the gesture, and the interaction between those two things converge to illustrate a greater theological meaning that is distinctive for each tradition. In this video, we aim to understand the manner in which worshippers interact with a particular religious symbol, whether it be bowing to the ark, genuflecting to the cross, or praying to the mihrab in Judaism, Christianity, or Islam respectively. What can be examined from an interreligious study of orthodox adherent intersections between body language and symbol.
In the Jewish tradition, the synagogue is the home of prayer. It is a place of communal gathering where Jews of all kinds get together to pray to God. The main symbol in a synagogue is the Ark of the Covenant, and the gesture related to the symbol is berakot, where one praises God's supremeness and bows toward the Ark. The Ark is always situated so when you face it you are looking toward Jerusalem, the holy city. We will begin the discussion of the significance of the Ark in the Jewish prayer setting. Originally called the Ark of Yahweh, its name was altered to the Ark of the Covenant to represent the holiness of God's covenant with the Israelites in the time of Moses. The head of the ark is called the kaparet, which means to cover or atone. This signifies the ark as a site of atonement or reconciliation between Yahweh and Israel, as stated in the book Religion, Past and Present, Encyclopedia of Theology and Religion. The ark itself is a wooden chest containing the tablets of Moses, the Pentateuch or Torah or Law in Hebrew. It is placed in the Holy of Holies, and its real name in Hebrew is Aron Kodesh. Its volume is 2.5 by 1.5 by 1.5 cubits. 1 cubit is about 1.5 feet, so it is generally fairly large. It is lined with an inner curtain called a parochet, which symbolizes the curtain that was in the Holy Temple of Solomon. The ark represents a mobile symbol of divine power and presence. In modern synagogues, it holds all the Torah scrolls which the congregation uses, as it represents the holiest location in the synagogue. It was originally constructed at Mount Sinai when Moses was given the Ten Commandments to the Israelites by Yahweh during their wanderings in the wilderness, where it was stored in the tabernacle. Later it was captured by the Philistines, but recovered and placed among cherubs in the Holy of Holies. David later brought the ark to Jerusalem, which renewed and expanded the significance of the ark. Other sources say that cherubs represented guardian figures for the ark. The ark was called Throne of the Cherubs because of its placement in Solomon's temple. When the first temple of Solomon was destroyed in 586 BCE by the Babylonians, the ark was lost and has since never been found. In accordance with the ark itself, there is a tradition of bowing when praising God. As Greenstein points out, Jews believe God is the creator and supreme being, so God should be praised. In Judaism, these gestures of gratitude toward Yahweh are called berakot. Berakot are blessings in Hebrew that directly acknowledge God's supremacy by declaring, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, God, King of the universe. According to the Jewish Virtual Library, berakot are recited before enjoying a material pleasure in order to acknowledge God as the creator of the thing that we are about to use. If you're at the sides of the room with the ark in the center, you shouldn't bow toward the ark, but east toward Yerushalayim, the holy city of Jerusalem. As a sign of respect, all congregants must stand when the ark is open. The symbol of the ark and its relation to berakot are significant. The ark was created during the time of Moses and the Exodus, and although the original was never discovered after the destruction of the first temple of Solomon, its significance in the Jewish tradition can still be seen as it is present in almost all synagogues today. The ark holds the precious books of Moses, which are the holiest set of books for all Jews. Barakot are carried out in order to call out God's supremacy and holiness on earth, as well as recognizing God as the Almighty Being. Barakot always confer respect toward God in almost any situation, but they don't have to take place in a synagogue. However, Barakot performed in a synagogue to the Ark is especially significant because in the Jewish tradition, a person is literally bowing to the place where God is most present. Essentially, Jews are bowing to the most accessible place on earth where God is likely to exist. This is the most noble and humble thing a Jew can do, and this is important because Jews strive to embody the morality that God has set out for the world. Bowing to the Ark that carries the Word of God is the most respectable action any Jew can participate in. By reciting these Barakot, we recognize that God is the creator of all things, and that we have no right to use things without first asking His permission. By doing this, we are not blessing God, but expressing fascination in how blessed God is. When saying the first half of this chant, one is supposed to bend one's knees and bow toward the Ark as if God were there. This gesture is derived from the Hebrew root word Beit Resh Kaf, meaning knee, which implies bending your knee and bowing to God. This may seem derogatory toward God, as if we're making God human, but it more so just sets a place where God is to be praised. One's heart should be pointed toward the Holy of Holies because that is where God's presence was strongest on earth.
Before entering a pew, Christians are obligated to look at the cross above the altar and bend the knee, also called genuflection, while making the sign of the cross. The symbolic development of the cross has a particularly interesting history. According to the Oxford Biblical Studies Online, the cross initially was an instrument of torture and execution used by the Romans, and previously by the Persians. Specifically, it was an upright stake to which the condemned man's body was tied or nailed. Early Christians during the first couple centuries of the Common Era would have seen the cross as a way to mock or demean the life of Christ, not celebrate it. Chambers' Dictionary of Beliefs and Religions notes that, until the 4th century, Christians were wary of using this symbol. With the conversion of Constantine, however, persecution ended and the cross, along with the labarum symbol, became immensely popular. Christians were famously persecuted by Roman authorities for 400 years, before tolerance became widespread under Constantine. According to the Dictionary of Christianity, Constantine was influenced to convert to Christianity after seeing a cross out of light in the sky with the words in hoc vince, meaning by this sign conquer. After following God's order in a vision to have the words inscribed on his army's shields, Constantine succeeded in battle. This experience of the cross influenced him to convert to Christianity. The Christian symbol of the cross experienced a fitting resurrection itself from a symbol of death and execution to a symbol of life and resurrection. The word of the associated gesture, genuflect, as stated in Oxford Reference Online, derives from the Latin words genu, knee, and flectere, to bend, similar to barakot in the Jewish tradition. In other words, to genuflect is to simply bend one's knee. Genuflection, as a Christian ritual, comes out of Christianity's Roman origins. The New Westminster Dictionary of Liturgy and Worship mentions that genuflection derives from civil recognition of imperial officials in antiquity. In this sense, genuflection is an act of reverence, whether it be for the earthly or divine lords. This gesture of veneration became connected to the cross because of the ultimate sacrifice Jesus made for humanity. Jesus' crucifixion and the salvation that resulted from it makes him greatly exalted in the religion of Christianity. Interestingly, the Christians were able to reclaim gestures associated with their oppressors, the Romans, and incorporate them into their religion. Unlike Judaism or later in Islam, Christians are not required to face Jerusalem or the Vatican when they look at the cross. The direction of the cross is not as important, but genuflection has an equivalent significance in both Judaism and Islam. When a Christian proceeds down the nave and genuflects before entering the pew, he or she is reminded that Christ died on the cross for them and that they have been redeemed. That interaction between the individual and the symbol in that moment is at the heart of Christian theology. To genuflect is to physically manifest one's belief in the redemptive nature of Christ.
Towards the mihrab. One can find this niche in the wall of every mosque in the world. According to the Chambers Dictionary of Beliefs and Religions, these architectural features provided Islamic craftsmen with the opportunity to indulge their artistic creativity with alabaster, gold, marble, mosaics, and semi-precious stones. In other words, mihrabs were often elaborately adorned. However, even though the mihrab is seen mainly as an architectural component of the mosque structure, it actually holds a much greater significance. Greenstein states that the positioning of the serves as an indication of the direction of Mecca. This is fundamental because Muslims must pray towards Mecca, Islam's holiest city, as part of their 5 pillars. The 5 pillars are the basic theological and ritual acts that Muslims use to demonstrate their faith. The significance of the mihrab can be interpreted to an even greater extent symbolically. This symbolism can be traced back to the origin of the mihrab. The New Encyclopedia of Islam reports that the earliest surviving mihrab is possibly one in Jerusalem, specifically in the cave of the Dome of the Rock. As a result, the mihrab became a symbolic of a cave, which is often perceived as an exclusive and hidden place. The meaning behind the cave is that it serves as a sacred space because of its isolation it provides. In the Quran, Surah 18 relates the tale of a group of young men who, after rejecting the wickedness of their city, retreat to a cave in the desert. They pray to Allah only to return to the same city to discover that everyone is now righteous. The symbolic design of the mihrab is an allusion to this specific surah. As Cyril Glassé, an international lecturer on comparative religion, puts it, the cave is taken to be the heart, and the mountain which surrounds it is the physical world, or body, which imprisons the spirit. It is within the heart that one encounters truth. Thus, the mihrab serves as a symbol of one's heart achieving true spirituality. The significance of the associated gesture of bowing comes from the core of the Islamic faith itself, which is submission. Islam itself translates to submission. The idea that a worshipping individual must humble him or herself to Allah is a fundamental to the Islamic thought. Because of this, the gesture is greatly incorporated in the practices of Islam, particularly in the Salat. The Salat is one of the religious obligations of Muslims, for it is included in their 5 pillars. In addition to executing various actions such as reciting verses from the Quran and facing the direction of the Kaaba for the Salat, Muslims also must perform rak'ah. According to the Historical Dictionary of Islam, rak'ah are a complete series of bowing performed during prayer. Rak'ah are almost exclusively performed in a mosque towards the imam while he stands in the mihrab. These raku, as it is in the plural, are viewed as the basic units of prayer for Muslims. The bowing, as it's stated by the Muslim Almanac, a reference work on the history, faith, culture, and peoples of Islam, are a way for Muslims to invoke God's praise. Who occupies the space within the niche becomes emblematic of one of those righteous men in the cave who is able to achieve true spiritual revelation. The rak'ah enables the common worshippers to accept the divine revelation being conferred upon them. The bows and the emblem of the mihrab itself are indicative of the greater theological understanding of Allah. Muslims are to praise Allah and receive holy revelation like the men in Surah 18. Ultimately, the gesture and the symbol represent how Muslims see God as holding a position of great authority and therefore illustrates the relationship between the divine and humanity in Islam.
So, what does this information amount to? So what? We believe that, after thorough research and serious contemplation, we have uncovered new meanings inherent in ancient religious rituals. We don't contend that the symbols and their respective gestures haven't had a long history of authorship and dogma. However, the significance of the connection between the emblem and the expression is seldom discussed. The combination of the two is symbolic in and of itself. In this sense, there is a meta meaning in the synergistic interaction between the religious symbol and the ritual gesture. The significance of the symbol and the gesture combined creates a new meaning beyond the basic meaning of the two. When we stated that people often neglect to truly consider the significance of the symbols to which they are exposed, that claim was in no way a judgment on people. We all ignore symbols in some way. It is a part of human nature. But we hope that the average person viewing this video will come to understand that there are beautifully diverse and complex meanings in what were once thought to be mundane and mechanically practiced religious gestures.